Well, hello there and welcome. My name is Kylie Patchett and I'm your host, and welcome to the Wild and Finally Fucking Free podcast. This show is all about sharing the real and raw stories from women who have undergone midlife metamorphosis, taken a leap of faith, or broken the ties that bind them in patterns of staying stuck, small, and like their needs don't matter. You see, I believe that the years leading up to and during menopause are a rite of passage, a deep invitation after so many years of giving our time, attention, and energy to others to carve out the same time, energy, and attention in ourselves, in our health, our love, our connection, our vitality, our purpose, our real needs and deep desires. You know, those ones lying dormant underneath all the duty, responsibility, pushing, striving, and achieving of our 20s and 30s? You see, at this stage in our lives, we find ourselves shifting identity potentially, no longer caring as much what other people think, and left wondering why on earth we have not given ourselves permission to do life in the way we truly want to. In this show, I speak to the women brave enough to truth talk their own midlife shedding skin stories, and the healers and helpers who help them transition through these crossroads of change. This is the midlife magic you didn't even know you needed, and I am so freaking glad you found us. Let's dive in. Hey there, before we dive into this episode, I have something exciting to share with you, which is I have just thrown open the doors for the first time in about 3 months to my one-on-one midlife mentoring containers. You'll find all the details at kyliepatchett.com.au, which is linked on all the different places you'll find this podcast, so easy to find. And right on that page, you can book in a midlife magic call with me. That is a 30 minutes, completely free and obligation free space where you can share where you are now, some of the stories you want to shed, and where you would deeply love to be. This is for women who have arrived at this point in their lives where they've got this, is this all there is feeling? And it's being met with a feeling of I have no more fucks to give and I have zero tolerance for bullshit which no longer serves me. So what I say about that is what a marvelous time to embrace what I like to call midlife metamorphosis. So if you're ready to shed skins, to heal old stories, to step into your power, your magnificence, and your true role of being creator and decider in this one precious life of yours, come feel into a midlife mentorship with me through an absolutely no obligation midlife magic call. All information at kyliepatchett.com.au. All right, let's dive in. Hello, welcome to the Wild and Finally Fucking Free podcast. I have got a treat for you today because I'm speaking to the beautiful Niamh Daly from all the way in Ireland. We always talk to each other when it's dark for me and light for her. Hello, Niamh. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm delighted to hear you actually say the F word in your announcement of the podcast, assuming then that the podcast guests are over 18. Don't you have to be over 18 to say fucking? I don't know.
I don't know, but you do have to say explicit content or not when you're loading podcasts onto a podcast platform. So I always say explicit because I'm always swearing. So let's just open slather it.
I love it.
Now, you and I only just... The gift of podcasting, this is a great example. My friend Sonia Lovell has an amazing podcast called Perimenopause, and she was talking to the lovely Justine Thompson, who has been through your training programs. And Justine, in the podcast episode I tuned into, was talking about training with this amazing woman in Ireland, and it was yoga for the stages of menopause. And I had that, the visceral, tingle. I get a tingle on the top of my head and I get that feeling in my belly. I'm like, oh, pay attention. I need to connect. And then I emailed you. We went backwards and forwards. And like I was saying before we started recording, I was so up in my head about there's no way I could do overnight training because I'm such an early bird. And I was just saying to you how grateful I am to have found myself as a student of yours, because it has opened up this world of possibility around perimenopause, menopause, and how we can best nourish and nurture and honor ourselves through the transition. So I just feel like you've opened up this window, and now I'm like, jamming my arms into it, going, here I am. I want to
Great.
know it all. So where do we even start? First of all, let's start with, can you introduce introduce yourself, not me, to our listeners?
Oh, well, this is Kylie Patchett. She's from Australia.
I'm a Murphy by birth, so I could, if I can't do an Irish accent, but I am Murphy, Irish County Cork by,
Okay.
ancestry.
Well, over in Ireland, we grew up on your soap opera Neighbours and then Home and Away when it came in. So we all think we're expert Australian accenters over here, but I'm not going to even go there.
Best not.
So to introduce you, you are my brave yoga teacher who had the permission to join the course and go to bed at a reasonable hour and have sections recorded for her, which is what I normally do for my Australian and West Coast US participants.
Yeah.
But no, you stayed till 2 a.m. your time. I was just gobsmacked. It was like you were gobbling everything up with such passion that you just couldn't put it down. And that's so lovely. And to hear that you have continued with such passion afterwards, continuing to read and explore. And that is really, I've just written down what you mentioned, a world of possibilities, that the training opened up a world of possibilities. And that is one of the most important things for me in the training, is that the training is not about giving you a set number of asanas to put in a particular yoga practice and to fix this, that, or the other. It's to open you up to the possibilities of where, if you put your creative juices into your perimenopause and your client's experience and into postmenopause considerations, you can create just a world of possibilities in terms of intervention, in terms of support, in terms of perspective shifting. The possibilities are endless, as they say. But that's not introducing me, that's just that's introducing you.
Very much.
I'm a 52-year-old postmenopausal Irish woman.
Yes.
I reached perimenopause in my probably early to mid 40s. I can't be exactly certain, but when I did finally get freaked out enough to go to a doctor to see, was there something else going on? I did know that perimenopause existed, and it probably was that, but I can't remember exactly when I first started experiencing symptoms. Anyway, I had already been a yoga teacher for many years. I'm now nearly 20 years a yoga teacher, and this is 2023. Just in case somebody's listening to this in 2030 or 2040.
Wow. The longevity of wild and finally fucking free, I say.
I know, exactly. You never know. So teaching for that long, and when perimenopause came into my life, I started to research, obviously, menopause much more than I would have bothered my arse to do previously, and recognized how much of the struggles of it are so related to stress. And that was the beginning of my awareness that yoga could help. But then I noticed that yoga wasn't talking about it at all. There was very little that you could find on the internet about menopause in terms of yoga. There absolutely have been studies done, and we can talk about those, or we might not, but you can find out about those. They're not conclusive, they're small, they're not enough that the world can properly recommend yoga for menopause symptoms, particularly. But I just saw that it was this desert in the yoga world. That we look at yoga for kids, we've yoga for teens, we've yoga for people in adulthood, we've yoga for pregnancy, we've yoga for mums and babies, and then it jumps to chair yoga, and there was nothing in between. So what about the women in their 40s, 50s, 60s who are, moving well enough and want to maintain that ability? Can we open the door for them? So I say this sometimes, that I went into what felt like I don't know, Christopher Columbus or something, except there were no natives that I was going to push out to the side. But I came to this great big new land, and it was just tumbleweed and nothing. And I put down a little flag going, "This is yoga for menopause," and that has grown and grown and grown. And now I wasn't the first, as it turned out. There was a woman in the UK who was creating as well a yoga for menopause teacher training around the same time as me. And we launched our teacher trainings within a couple of months of each other. She pipped me to the post. So she and I are creating, I guess, this, you know, we're knocking on the door of the yoga world and saying, wake up, we need these things. And since launching in 2020, the yoga teacher training, and particularly since there's been a lot of conversation about menopause in the UK and Ireland since a documentary was launched and was put out a couple of years ago. So I'm 3 years into the training now. About a year afterwards, there was a huge blow up around menopause in the media. And now there are more courses springing up on back of that media storm. So we're not the only two anymore, but I think we're definitely the longest standing and probably the best. You're muted, lovey. Kylie, you're muted. You're chatting away and I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. You've disappeared. You're going to have to edit this bit.
Can you hear me
I don't
now?
know if it's my yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, far out. I was trying to not record the dogs from my end, so I was like, okay.
I can't hear them. You probably can, though.
I can, and it's very annoying. So I will go back. Where are we up to? 1937. Okay, sorry. As I am listening to you describe, like you're a yoga teacher and you're a really experienced yoga teacher, it astounds me, and you say this about when you're inviting people to come and do like professional development with you, as well as the yoga for menopause training, that what's the biggest demographic of people doing yoga in the world? Women. And then half of them, or probably more than half, because we don't start our yoga journeys generally until later in life, are going to be either perimenopause or menopause or beyond. So it's astounding to me. And I think that I feel like I'm in a similar, I was saying to you before we started recording, like I hit 47 and all of a sudden changes started happening for me, definitely exacerbated by the amount of life craziness that was happening last year. But I really hadn't thought about perimenopause or menopause at all, except for this kind of negative connotation of like, oh yeah, she's menopausal, with an eye roll and one of those like, oh, it's just she's hormonal type of feelings. And now it astounds me equally that we've not had until now yoga specifically around menopause, that me, who is always challenging the status quo or asking why or wanting to look at different ways of traversing through cycles of life or transformation periods, did not, before I actually hit the first symptom for myself, actually think about or consider the invitation and the rite of passage that perimenopause is. And I think for me, that's the biggest thing. And you say perspective shifting. I really, really loved, and this is mainly why I didn't go, and go to bed and wait for the recording, because I wanted to be part of listening to the way that you teach and the way that you phrase things, where it's normalizing not only the symptoms of menopause that some people can experience, but the gamut of experiences, everything from, and this is something that really stuck with me after working with you, the gamut of, some people that just swan on through and there's no big issues, all the way to the women that have such life-changing and life-challenging symptoms that we know that, female suicide rates are the highest between, so it's 45 and 55, isn't it? Like that's
45, 54. Yeah.
54. Yeah. Shocking, absolutely shocking to me. And I didn't really realize how, I knew about the hot flush sort of end of things, and that was about it. And I'm astounded, because I would like to think that I'm a pretty well-informed human and woman, and I just haven't even thought about this until it was kind of right front and center. One of the things I would love to dive into, so you're a yoga teacher, you talked to us in our training about making sure that when we're teaching yoga, that we are taking care of our students that are in that perimenopause and menopause years. And you talked about yoga teachers with multiple injuries. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because the way that you explain that, and I have to, I guess, preface the conversation by saying to anyone listening who doesn't already know that I'm really, really hyperflexible. So for me, yoga is a challenge more so about creating strength and structure and holding my ligaments and joints where they should be versus where they can go to. But you explained the taking care of your students in a very similar way. It's like making sure that people understand that it's not about going all the way to the extreme of where you can go. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Hey gorgeous, we interrupt this gold for a delicious invitation. If your whole body has been whispering more lately, more voice, more truth, more satisfaction, more clients of the soulmate variety, more cash, more you, then this invitation is for you. Potent, my sister mind is officially open. This is my high touch, holy fuck, I'm ready sister mind for rebels in good girl clothing who are done outsourcing their power and diluting their magic to fit into someone else's business formula. If you have been craving a space where your strategy, your voice, and your energy all get to be offered, honored, refined, and amplified, this is it. Inside of Potent, you will get my eyes on your business every single week, copy mentoring, and that is for brand copy and content storytelling that turns your truth into client catnip, energetic recalibration that helps you unhook old learned limitation patterns, keeping you quiet, not being seen, not being heard, real-time, high-touch, one-on-one coaching that actually sees the bigness of your vision, and the kind of sisterhood that does not flinch when you show up in your full, messy, brilliant, phoenix rising from the ashes glory. This isn't surface level support. It's deep, potent, paradigm shifting work that changes who you are as a woman in business and a woman in life. We start in August. Early open access is open right now. For the month of June 2025, inside of this early access open doors period, you will receive juicy bonuses, extended payment plans, and access immediately to my entire library of storytelling gold. You'll find all the juicy details at kyliepatchett.com/potent. And we fill spaces, and there's only 10 of them, and more than likely only 5 by the time you listen to this, because by that time I will have offered them to the existing cohort, the beautiful original OG circle. We do actually take applications on a first come, first served basis. So come and apply, and let's get back to the magic of the episode.
Yeah, and that to me is something that is important at all times during a yoga journey. Unfortunately, it's not really, a lot of people do yoga because they're quote unquote good at it, which is often because they're hypermobile, or, so they're, and they go into their yoga studio and their teacher goes, oh my God, you're so good at this. And then you get the yoga studios who are, running the big yoga teacher trainings. They go up and say, you're so good at this. Do you want to do the teacher training? And then they think they're the business and this is what yoga is about. And so then they go in with their hypermobile bodies. They are at the top of a yoga class teaching in hypermobility, and their students are looking at them going, oh, so that's what it means to be a yogi. It's to put my legs behind my head. So I have to aspire to that. And if I can't do that, then I have to give up, or I have to work harder, or I'm no good, that kind of thing. So this is important at all ages, to not to be striving for full end of range of motion, because that does put pressure on our ligaments, tendons, and cartilage. The cartilage is the substance that lines our joints, that stops bone pressing on bone. And we are seeing, even in a non-perimenopausal cohort an increase in hip replacements in yoga teachers. We're seeing an increase in bony spurs in yoga teachers, which can occur from excessive back bending. And this is at ages that are way too young or way younger than might naturally happen. And of course, these things can happen in a population who isn't doing yoga as well, of course. And we can't presume anything, but the statistics are kind of showing us a fair bit of spookiness. There would also be anecdotally a heck of a lot of sacroiliac dysfunction. Sacroiliac is the joint at the base of the spine between the pelvis and the lower spine, and lumbar spine difficulties as well, and gluteal issues and hamstring issues, and other issues. So this is because of the kind of striving nature of how yoga has become glorified in the Western world, but actually not just the Western world. I've seen pretty extreme stuff happening in the home of India, the home of yoga in India. But why is all of this more important in perimenopause? So much. So the first thing I would say is that self-esteem can plummet in perimenopause. And many women I speak to who have enjoyed a yoga practice have found themselves leaving their yoga practice, either because they feel they don't enjoy it physically anymore, or it's too much effort, or because they feel they're suddenly getting quote unquote rubbish at it and they feel ashamed, and they're looking at the teacher and they're feeling less than, and so they leave their practice, or they stay in the practice continuing to berate themselves, pushing themselves, feeling crapper and crapper about themselves. So for reasons of self-esteem, it's really important to me to train that a teacher models the easiest version of things, because the easiest version of things has plenty of benefits. And we can, of course, look around our yoga studio and go, actually, today I just happen to have a group who I know are fairly safe to play a little more, robustly, or have a bit more of a laugh with this pose. But when I am working towards I'm working with a pose and taking it to different shapes and different ranges of motion, that you get playful with it. You kind of say, this may or may not be important to do, but if we want to feel that pleasure and that fun, let's play with this. But there is no end point. And to try and bring the postures back to being about functionality and how can we remain healthy, stable, strong, bringing into the conversation the fact that muscular strength is more beneficial in perimenopause and more necessary postmenopausally than flexibility. Flexibility is part of it, of course, because we need to be able to, when we're 90, reach up and get the tin of beans off the shelf and tie our shoelaces if we can. But actually maintaining muscle tissue, maintaining muscle mass is incredibly important for the muscles themselves and for bones and for emotional health, because strength, when we can feel our muscles, we do better statistically in terms of depression, anxiety, low mood, that kind of thing. So that's the psychological piece, the self-esteem, the value of muscles, the sense of I'm enough, this is enough. I don't, unless you want to be a gymnastic yogi, which is fine. If that's what you want, go for it. But don't expect that you can do that without risk. If you decide to be a gymnast for the rest of your life, you know that there's a payoff at the other end, or a cost at the other end to joint health, in particular with gymnastics. And remember, like those of you who listen to this podcast who are yoga teachers will know this already, but the yoga postures we do in the West, the majority of them were an adoption from Swedish gymnastics that were brought in the last century. So it is essentially gymnastics. Yes. And if we can recognize that, then we take on the risk knowingly. So there's a really important debate happening at the moment around informed consent. And when you hear about people doing like really calorie restricted diets, or in the UK at the moment, there's a scandal where private menopause clinics have been prescribing twice the licensed doses of HRT. And this is all without informed consent, because they're not saying you are going past the licensed dose, you are likely to be more at risk of X, Y, Z. They're just saying, oh, this isn't working, let's up the dose. It's the same with calorie restricted diets. People are saying, yes, you'll lose weight, but they're not saying you may also lose bone density. You may also spring back to greater than your weight before. If you spring back to greater than your weight before, you will increase your cardiovascular risks, your cardiovascular disease risks. If you do yoga asana beyond a reasonable functional range of motion, you may develop something like labral tears, sacroiliac dysfunction, bony spurs, gluteal amnesia. That's informed consent. There's no teacher sitting at the top of the mat, and no teacher trainers sitting at the top of a group of soon-to-be yoga teachers saying that. And that is bad, bad, bad. There's no informed consent.
Absolutely.
Like, do you know truly deeply.
Sorry. You're reminding me of the concept in aged care of dignity of risk, and it is a slightly different framework, but what you're reminding me of is that, dignity of risk when someone is aging says, we can say as medical professionals, I would suggest that you use a wheelie walker because your mobility is at XYZ level and you're at increased risk of falls. But until someone doesn't have the cognitive ability to decide for themselves, they still have what's called dignity of risk. So they can weigh up, if I do this, then the likelihood of this is, and that's basically what you're saying, is that for me to be able to consent consciously to something, I need to actually know what the risks and the benefits are, and for me to decide whether I'm willing to pay the cost or potential cost of that. I'm just nodding along here because I have had a labral tear and SIJ dysfunction. I haven't had gluteal. What did you say? Gluteal
amnesia.
That sounds fun. That doesn't sound fun at all.
No.
Is that when you're?
It's basically when the glutes forget how to contract, so they are dysfunctional. They don't contract, which is what muscles have to do.
I reckon I probably have that too, because when I walk, I'm not actually using my bum at all. But anyway, that's a whole other kettle of fish. We don't need to talk to the podcast audience about that. So, as a yoga teacher, and one of the things that you said when you answered the podcast, like pre-questions, was that a way that you feel that you've kind of broken the ties that bind is that at one stage you felt like you were teaching and you weren't being honest with your students, or not at the stage where you were, it's not honesty is not the right word, but that you weren't sharing with your students that you were actually pushing your body in ways that did not support and nourish you through that transition. How have things changed since you became aware of that, since you've created a body of work that is your training that you offer other people? When you start a class, and I know this because I've been in your training, but I'm just really interested for you to tease out for our listeners how you frame the changes that can happen in perimenopause, because you're kind of thinking, or the way that you were teaching us was, potentially you've got a class with some people that haven't had any symptoms, others that have had lots of symptoms, others that aren't even aware that there is symptoms that may or may not, appear. So how do you frame it for people?
Yeah, okay. So first, I'm just want to nip briefly back to the question before, because we covered the reasons why mentally and emotionally. No, it's my fault. Why mentally and I went on a tangent, as I do, as you know. Mentally and emotionally, we talked about self-esteem and all of that, and muscular strength for emotional health rather than bendiness for emotional health. But also just on a physiological level, why is this avoidance of injury more important in perimenopause and menopause? It's because of there being less cartilage, so you have more likelihood, or the cartilage would be more delicate, there's less thickness of it, so you're more likely to have cartilage tearing or cartilage wearing away and bone on bone and osteoarthritis, so you don't want to go to full range of motion and get bone on bone. There's less collagen, which helps muscle and ligament and tendon to repair and bones to repair. There's more osteoporosis, so we can't be going into deep rounded backs, deep twists with levering with the hand, with the arms, etc. So it is also there's physiological reasons why it's more important to create a careful asana practice. That does not mean an asana practice that is not strong and demanding. It's a different kind of demanding to putting your leg behind your head. So to answer your other question, how do I frame it with my students? How do I frame perimenopause, etc.? and also this piece about that I wasn't honoring my own issues in my body in terms of my practice and my teaching. So one is that I wasn't honoring my body and my physical practice because I was trying to do, you know, big twists with taking a bind, and I would feel in that moment, you know, oh look, I can do the bind, and this is just on my own. Like, I'm not in front of anybody being competitive with anybody else, just like, ooh, I'm so cool, all on my own in a little room. And I'd be taking a bind and a twist. It doesn't matter if you don't know what it means, if you're not a yoga teacher, but an extreme end range of motion of the spine. And I'd be going, oh, that kind of hurts in my lower back, but look, I'm doing it. And then the next day I would definitely, my lower back would be gone out, be gone. And I wouldn't be able to, you know, function properly without being crooked and in spasm for about a week. But I would kind of, I knew it was the yoga, and I would go in teaching, and the odd time, if I was brave enough, I'd say, oh, my lower back is a bit bad. And they'd say, what did you do? And I said, oh, I just was picking up my foot in the shower to clean it. And they were like, oh God, yeah. And someone would always say, but it wasn't the yoga. And I'd be like, oh God, no. And I knew it flipping was. I really knew it was. So I wouldn't say that, because the whole yoga world won't say that. It's always, oh, it's not the yoga. And your students will come in saying the same thing. I injured myself the day after yoga. Oh, but it wasn't the yoga, they'll say. The student will. And you'd be like, well, actually, that's kind of classic. It's in the 24 hours after you've done something extreme that you need to be looking at. And this was happening. And because it didn't happen in the yoga class, they were assuming it wasn't because of the yoga. So when I started feeling that I was, well, acknowledging that I was lying to my yoga students, to be frank, I was lying, because lying by omission or lying by, oh yeah, maybe not, because you can't be absolutely 100% certain. When I stopped lying, the pressure when my back would go into spasm to turn up on the mat, pretending I wasn't in pain, letting go of that pressure was amazing. So I could limp into the yoga class if I needed to. I could teach from a supine position if I needed to, instead of like, you know, what poses can I do if I'm getting up from standing? If I leave them in child's pose while I get up off the floor, they don't have to see me, and then I can get them up off the floor. It's incredible what you'll do, what I will do. I should own it myself, but I suspect that as I am not the only person in the world, there's probably other people, you know, having the same thoughts as me. So that was kind of before perimenopause. I started to feel disingenuous about that whole thing. I was looking more in depth into injury and stuff like that. Did a bit of a training with Donna Farry, who is very much at the forefront of making an awareness of injuries and functional yoga, injuries in yoga, and let's make it more functional. And then when perimenopause came, I was hiding hot flushes, hiding anxiety in particular. I think anxiety is something that people feel weak because they're experiencing it, and they don't want other people to know they're scared. And there's something natural in that. I think it's if you think it on a species level, a dog, if it knows you're scared, may be more aggressive. Isn't that a thing? You have to try. So hiding fear is not necessarily an unnatural thing to do, but we're more sophisticated than that as humans. And I think we can, you know, we know now that being open and being in compassionate, empathetic company is good for our feel-good hormone. So actually sharing, we've learned, is actually helpful. But I would have hidden my anxiety and tried to truck on. I would have hidden my brain fog and gotten embarrassed about brain fog, forgetting things, making excuses for forgetting to turn up for a yoga class, for instance, pretending it was about something else. So there was low mood. I would definitely not have shared that I was feeling, you know, a bit depressed, or I don't think I entered into full depression in my perimenopause, but definitely low mood. Those were the kind of three things that I would have hidden. And then as I started to recognize where I was at and started to research the benefits that yoga could, an adapted kind of yoga practice and teaching could have for people in perimenopause with their symptoms, this was the first interest for me. I started to recognize that the best way of doing that was to first share symptoms and make people aware. So the way that I make people aware was beginning with expressing my own symptoms, so that I wasn't putting them on the spot. I was allowing them to go, oh, me too. And oh, there's a freedom to speak here. So that would be the first way I would frame things in a group that weren't necessarily coming to join me for a class for menopause. They just were in my class. Talk about my experience, be more open, be more transparent, be more vulnerable, and not expect anyone to meet me there. They don't have to share their experiences, but at least they might go home feeling they're not alone, they're not going crazy, all of that. So it's a matter of getting up in the yoga studio and going to the window and going, oh God, lads, just a minute, hot flush, and flapping away at the window. Or my favorite thing is when I'm having a hot flush is to say, lads, I'm having a hot flush. Don't trust anything I say for the next minute and a half. You know, what comes out of my mouth may make no sense. Yeah. So that kind of thing. And talking about my anxiety, and, you know, I wouldn't need to go necessarily very in depth in a class, but in workshops, I would be very transparent. In workshops, people are more likely to want to share their experience. So it's more about listening. But when I'm dealing with someone in crisis now, postmenopausally and past all those symptoms, my clients find it really helpful when I talk maybe about how deep my anxiety went. And it was only for a number of months that I had deep anxiety, but I remember having to ring my sister, and I hope this helps some people who are listening, who happens to be a psychotherapist and, you know, my go-to confidant, I suppose. And I remember her talking to me on the phone while I'd walk on the beach, thinking that I wanted to walk into the sea and not come back. And that level of anxiety that felt like it was unbearable. And she would basically talk me down. I knew I wasn't suicidal. I knew I wasn't going to do it because thoughts would come into my head like, it would be a bit too cold, wouldn't it? So that was how I knew I was okay. But I that level of not suicidal ideation, but wanting it to be over. And when I share that with clients, they have absolutely said it. I feel so much safer now knowing that you, because they unfortunately still think I'm fabulous, which I'm not, I'm just me. But because they've come to you for help, they want to think that you've got it all sorted, and you do a bit. That they find that really helpful in terms of being in that phase and the fear they're feeling about their mental health and their future. So it just depends where you're at. But I frame it with, it's okay and it's shit.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it really we need to talk about the perspectives of it's okay to have a hot flush. A hot flush is not going to damage your health. Low mood is not going to kill you unless it develops into depression and suicide. Same with anxiety, same with aches and pains. So perimenopause won't kill you. None of the symptoms is actually in itself dangerous. So if we can the ones that we can live with, like say a hot flush, can we manage to shift our perspective, to normalize them, to feel comfortable enough to maybe share them if that helps in a work situation, or to hide if we choose to hide. We don't all have to be broadcasting it. So can we normalize it without this sometimes evangelical stance that we might find in the yoga world or the wellness world of like, if you just normalize it and get empowered, you'll be okay. What's the big deal? Because that is to completely dismiss the intense horror that some people experience, not horror, the intense life-altering, debilitating symptoms that some people experience.
Exactly.
Life-altering in that you can't function very well.
Yeah, exactly. Day-to-day function completely. There's so much gold in what you're saying, because the word normalizing is coming to me, and not because it empowers you to just pretend it's not a problem, but normalizing, talking about perimenopause, understanding that what we go through is a normal process, that there's a great invitation that comes with all of the symptoms that you can possibly have emotionally, physically, etc. I think one of the things that's really true for me at the moment is I feel like in my 20s and 30s, I felt like I had this never-ending supply of energy, love, attention, joy. Like it just, I have always been very high energy, lots of juice in the tank, I guess. But as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that I still have the drive to, you know, connect and seek joy and do all of those energetic things. But I have to be really much more discerning because I do have less resources to invest. And I feel like that is a brilliant invitation for us to become more aware of what, like who we want to be going into our next phase of life. So it's almost like, I don't know, the hot flushing thing to me, I don't have too bad an issue with hot flushing, but sometimes we'll wake up fine. And as soon as I wake up, I'm like hot, like, I don't know what that's about. Anyway, I think you said that was something.
Yeah, that's quite common.
Yeah. So not the sweaty thing, but just all of a sudden I'm like, oh, had one the other night and I'm saying to my husband, he'd gotten up and turned the aircon off and it was like 37 degrees in Queensland at the moment. And I'm like, what on earth are you doing, you psychopath? And he's like, what? And I'm lying in bed going, I'm sweating from my elbows and my knees. Put the air conditioner.
But I love that part of the perspective shifting that I'm undergoing through how you have been.
Yeah, sharing and normalizing is that I'm now going, yes, I'm experiencing this and it's uncomfortable. And also the flip side or the equal and opposite gift is it's an invitation to actually have to slow down and have to be more discerning, have to have more rest. And I think that the more that we can share anytime that we can in any environment, like I was at a friend's, place the other night and my friend's husband said, oh, you know, hot flush, roll the eyes, and I was like, yeah, she's in the portal of like rebirthing herself, like power on, sister. And he was like, what?
Lovely.
What? And I'm like, she's literally burning all the bullshit down that she will not tolerate anymore. So watch out. But, you know, there's that Phoenix Rising sort of, I don't know, vibe that I get as well. How did you find that the way that you invested your precious resources has changed, traversing and then being in the post-menopausal sort of end of things? I've got this lovely hallmark version of being post-menopausal where all my energy comes back and I'm like, so I'm interested to hear what's your experience.
Yeah, it's definitely not hallmark, but it is a lot better. Yeah, I like my friend Petra Fulham, actually, who does the nutritional therapy part of the course. She talked to me recently about capacity and learning when we are at capacity. And you and I, just before we started recording, we're talking about boundaries and capacity. And I think I posited the possibility that rather than thinking of us as having boundless capacity when we're in our young adulthood and our mid-adulthood before we reach perimenopause, and now we have limited capacity, that we just change the words and we have different capacity. We are constantly changing. And maybe I just sprung up with the mad idea that actually maybe young adulthood is the messy time. That's when we think we have boundless capacity. And actually that is the transition time to recognizing what the full real capacity of a human is, which is much more like what it is post-menopausally and perimenopausally, because particularly the people who are born female, I don't know about the transgender experience of becoming female. Do you go from being the stereotypical monotasking male to the multitasking female? I don't know. That'd be a very interesting thing to look at. Do people who transition from male to female maintain their very sensible monotasking and not think that they can take on the world, which is what women seem to do? Anyway, what if, the true nature of womanhood is how we are in peri and post menopause? Why do we hold holy grail this young adulthood time when we have this, as you say, sort of boundless capacity? Why do we holy grail that when actually it is depleting? It can be depleting, and it's just that our physiology can manage to recover in ways that it can't when we're peri and postmenopausal. Like, we know that for a young woman, exercising like a young man is depleting on her thyroid function, but she may not recognize that until she's older and her thyroid starts to play up. So there are definitely capacities that we overshoot in young adulthood and adulthood that we recognize more keenly in perimenopause. So maybe this is the good time, peri and
I
post.
really love that idea, because something that's being born out of a lot of these conversations is the feeling of peace and power that starts to emerge in these years. So yes, there's a bunch of symptoms that may or may not be affecting you, but we definitely from the experiences that I've shared with friends and on this podcast, you do come into a more, I don't know, like one of the ladies I interviewed today said, I have arrived. Like that, she feels like and she's 61, so she's like well past menopause. But her idea was that there's messiness in her 20s and 30s, and the older she gets, the more clean and clear she is with her capacity, what she'll tolerate, how many fucks she'll give, literally. Like, I just don't care. I'm not keep moving. That was what she was saying. So I like the idea. I really, really like that perspective that you're offering. That yes, this is actually the juice and the first part. Not that we should negate the 20s and 30s either, because obviously there's a brilliant purpose for that.
But I think we have made them the pinnacle of our human experience. This is when we are, I posted about this the other day, when we are complete, when we're finished, when we're fully formed, ready specimen to live life. But that level of physical manifestation only lasts for 15 years, maybe. So, and even then it's still changing. It's changing regularly. And then there's more change, and then there's more change. And really, we're not complete and finished until we die. That's when a human is finished. That's the finished product.
Yeah, exactly.
Not this 15 years of adulthood. So and I understand why we have idealized that phase, because we are animals and reproduction is our modus operandi. It's our driving force. And, obviously we are aware that there are people for whom that's a difficult conversation because they may not have managed to reproduce and wanted to. So I can't be flippant about that. I need to hold all those experiences. But essentially, if we boil it down to pure animal stuff, we're trying to reproduce. So it's understandable that we have idealized that phase. And then since the Industrial Revolution, we've also idealized the person who can be productive and work like a lunatic, 6 days, 5 days a week or whatever. So I understand why we've idealized that phase. But given what we know now, given the fact that we are a more nuanced animal than most, I think we surely can start to rethink what the human lifespan is. And it is just a continuity of change. It's not.
Absolutely.
There isn't and even though your guest was saying at 60, she feels like she's arrived. I bet when she's 70, she'll go, oh, now I've arrived. Because every 10 years, I'm like, oh, now I've arrived. And now, I'm growing up now. Like now, I think I'm starting to finally grow up. I'm 52.
See, I laugh at my, 15-year-old self that used to be in a shopping center, used to work at a Wendy's, like an ice cream place. And I remember serving the 18-year-old girls that have got their own car keys. And I'm like, pinnacle of where I want my life to be. And then of course you get that and you're like, okay, now I'm looking for a mate and I'm going to get married and I'm going to have babies and well, actually didn't want babies, but anyway, that happened. And also honoring not to be flippant if that has not been your experience. But every single time I get to the time that I think I'm going to have my shit together and be grown up, nope, definitely not there yet.
Yeah. So just to be clear, it does get better symptomatically. I think that's a really important thing too. I mean, I slept like a baby for the 2.5 weeks that I decided to take off when the kids weren't in school. So I didn't have to get up at 7 a.m. Back to those sleeping in capacity that you lose in perimenopause. You're like, I can sleep in, but you can't. You're just wide awake at 7 a.m. So that sleep really improves and the sort of mood fluctuations really improve. So I don't have anxiety at all, except I have maybe two hot flushes a day now, and I'll get this spike of anxiety just before it, and I'd be like, oh no, the anxiety's back, what the hell? And then I'd be like, oh no, I know what's coming. Wait for it.
Wait.
Hot
Oh,
flush.
there's the heat.
And yeah, so it's all that normalizing, knowing what it's about. So you understand your body better postmenopausally. You're able to see it more clearly and not get frightened by the symptoms. Whereas when you're in the thick of perimenopause, the symptoms can be so thick and fast and constant that you don't get the space to notice, that Viktor Frankl quote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. And I think that's what menopause does, is it gives you the spaces. Whereas perimenopause, it's really hard to see the spaces. And that's one of the key things in the training, is about helping people to, helping our students to look for the space.
Yes. Do you know, looking for the space and also experiencing your body through the filter of what feels good. We're here for pleasure. So for me, one of the, I always talk about chiropractic adjustments of the soul. I remember it was very early one morning in your training, and we did the first exercise of, now I'm going to forget the word.
Somatic kind of yumminess.
Articulation, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's experiencing your body just as it wants to move for only one purpose, which is just to feel good. And that, to me, when it can be easy, and it's certainly been some of my friends' experience of feeling like their body is betraying them, like their body is heading in a direction that they don't want it to be, and they're aging, or maybe they haven't had their children if they want to, and all of those things. To actually reconnect to being in my body just to feel good. And that's actually extended to me into, excuse me, a lot less structured self-practice and a lot more just movement for the sake of moving. And one of the things that I also absolutely loved about how you taught us was just, stroking your own hand, like experiencing that, being completely in your body and in the sensations of your body, and just experiencing something for the pleasure of it and the awareness. That definitely has turned something on in my brain about even just, like, I used to dance all the time when I was younger, but I stopped dancing because I stopped going clubbing, and God forbid I would ever go clubbing and rather stick a fork in my eye than go into a nightclub. But I miss the dancing because it's like such a good way of shaking it up and moving things through your body and just having fun and doing silly things for the joy of it. And I've started doing that much more regularly, and I'm like, this is just, it's a reminder that our body is this beautiful vehicle that can have all of these beautiful sensations that, it can be, in my experience, has been easy to forget when life gets lifey like that, I'm definitely coming from a frame of, have always chosen to tick things off the to-do list before the fun and the play and the pleasure. And that's one of my big intentions this year, is to do stuff just for the fun and the joy of it. So
that's something that, that's one of my postmenopausal experiences, is that I've reversed that so much that I do find that I get a little kind of almost paralyzed in terms of getting stuff done, because I've so trained myself to aim for the pleasure and the ease first, that the to-do list doesn't get done. But you work with that little by little, and the moment arises. But I love that you brought up the pleasure piece, and it's really important. And in terms of accessibility is a really, it's an important bit. So someone who is in a wheelchair, if they have the use of their arms, they can stroke their hands. If they don't have the use of their arms, they can get someone to stroke a feather on their cheek. They can roll their head around, or they can just close their eyes and imagine pleasure. So the staying connected to the body is incredibly important in perimenopause, because a lot of people, as you say, feel their body is letting them down. They disassociate then from our body, which is a trauma response, and then they can't connect to their body because it's too scary to inhabit the body, because it feels like a scary environment. So if we can just bring in those little things, like it might not be possible for somebody to writhe around on the floor, but it might be not too triggering to stroke their own hand or their own cheek, and to really focus in on it. So pleasure is incredibly important to reduce the possibility of somebody disassociating from their body. It's also really important because it induces the feel-good hormones, which have many of the beneficial effects that estrogen and progesterone do. They're neurotransmitter supportive. They are inflammation reducing. They reduce the experience of pain. They help us stay social, which is something that a lot of people in perimenopause become antisocial or become, they can't handle social experiences. So reducing potential for trauma response, reducing or increasing the feel-good hormones, pleasure, and also reducing the likelihood of injury, because when we move with the aim of pleasure, we automatically, unless we have a dysregulated relationship with pain and from an abusive past, if we are aiming towards pleasure, we tend to shy away from pain. They're kind of the opposite of what the nervous system will strive for. The nervous system, I love this, has 3 responses. I remember Andrew Huberman saying this. One is yum, one is and one is meh. And if we can keep the nervous system in yum, or at the very least in meh, like it's okay, that's really really helpful. So the pleasure piece is central to my teaching, not just because it's nice. And with regard to the dancing, I 5 rhythms dancing took me through the biggest, deepest dark patch of my perimenopause because of that ability to yell it out. So you don't have to go clubbing to dance your shit off in community, because dancing in community and being witnessed is great. But if you're too shy to go to 5 rhythms, or you live in the middle of nowhere like Kylie Patchett, you can 5 rhythms your face off in your kitchen. So dancing when the kettle's boiling, very important.
I had forgotten that you were, that you had the dance end of things as well. I just did a 3-day experience with a friend, and part of the end day was like a rebirthing, but she did a really cool, like a dance experience through. So it started, it was about rebirthing into the new year and whatnot. So started with a certain sort of tempo of music and worked up to this like fever pitch craziness, and then you end up on the floor and you're like completely still, and then back. And it was so cool. So cool. I don't know, cool is such a bad word to describe that, but so enjoyable.
It's a perfect word.
And so pleasurable.
Cathartic and healing.
And just the craziness of shaking your head around and just being wild, literally.
In 5 rhythms, that point is called chaos, and it really is about embracing and acknowledging the chaos and throwing your shit on the floor out, throwing it out of your body. Cleaning house, as my 5 rhythms teacher calls it.
What is it? Cleaning house?
Cleaning house, she says. But that rhythm is called chaos.
I love it. I love it. Interesting. I have not had trouble sleeping once. I'm going to kibosh myself here. I'm tapping my wooden table. Since I've started to really pay attention to pleasure and being embodied, like much more embodied than, obviously I've also been on holidays too. So that changes things, but my intention is to bring that through into everyday life, not just holiday life. Because that's one of the things that's definitely the more I get stuck in my head, the less everything else works, obviously. To be embodied.
And pleasurable movement is not cortisol inducing movement. So endurance running is going to increase your cortisol and potentially dysregulate your cortisol, so you're going to sleep with high cortisol. So pleasure, exercising in ways you love is not just a trite meme. It's actually, it has a biochemical positive effect. It's better to do something that you love than that you feel is like a slog.
And much more sustainable. Much more sustainable. I want to head down the track of the aging piece, because everyone who's listening will put in the show notes how to connect with Niamh on social media. You just did some photos, I don't know how long ago, but I've seen you posting them, where your aim or your intention is to break down the barriers of like what we think each other looks like, what the right body looks like, how we age, how it's okay to age, that all bodies are, perfect the way they are, etc. Can you talk more about what led you to do the photo shoot end of things, and Yeah. What's the what led you to do it first?
Yeah. So your listeners will be able to find those posts easily because I've put them on a highlights. Is that what they call it? In the stories highlights in the Instagram, and it's called Naked Truth.
Okay,
so
add that to my show notes.
I was aware as an actor, I'm an actor as well, and as a yoga teacher, that all my, intentions with photographs was always about, for the portrait as an actor was to look as beautiful as I could or whatever. And then, you have to kind of look like who you are, but most of us as actors would want to look at the most beautiful version of ourselves. Which is kind of mad when you're not classically beautiful and not all that, supermodel symmetrical, because actually I probably would have had a better career if I'd sold myself as more the quirky face that I have, But anyway, so that was that. And then for yoga teachers also, it's either you look muscular or you look bendy, and definitely in the yoga world, it's about slim. And it's about as well as as lean as my photographer, the Sharon who did the naked photo shoot, said, used the word lean. She said, you're the most lean person I've done a naked shoot with, which I thought was a really interesting new word to add to the sort of the canon, because it's not positive or negative. It's not slim has become a very sort of positive word, and fat has become a negative word, whereas it's just different shapes, really. So I liked the word lean. Anyway, so yes, you want to even if you are in a larger body and you're a yoga teacher, you want to appear super healthy. It goes back to what we were talking about before. I couldn't be on my mat telling them that I damaged my lower back or that I was anxious, because that was against the yoga teacher vibe. And I absolutely have had yoga students saying to me, but Niamh, you can't feel like that. You're a yoga teacher. Incredible. Surely I fell in the ice a month ago, and I told my yoga students that I'd fallen flat on my back on the ice. And they said, how could you fall? You're a yoga teacher. On black ice.
Do you also deliver presents on Christmas Day?
Yeah. So I that was after the naked photo shoot, but basically I was working in this field, and I was still, of course, if I take a photograph of myself, I'm thinking, is this a good advertisement for my work? Because I want punters, I need to earn a living.
Yeah, of course.
And I thought, yes and no, because I was at the same time, I'm lucky, I don't know why this was happening, but I was getting fascinated by the softening of my body. Rather than hating it, I was getting fascinated. Like there's one particular thing that I was noticing in the bath. So some angle of when I was getting in the bath was the fold at the bottom of my abdomen. And there's a post about that and a picture of it. This was the first physical thing that I wanted her to photograph, because it made me connect with my mother, because I used to hate that fold in her. It would disgust me. And then I was seeing it myself. My mum died when I was 15, and I was like, oh God, I am my mum. It's okay. And it was such a beautiful falling in love, just seeing my body getting to the age hers was when she died. And it had disgusted me. And yet here I was seeing what I missed, which was her. So now I'm tearing up. So
me too.
that was the bit of my body that I first wanted Sharon to photograph. She does these sessions called soul sessions. I knew her from before because she'd done some of my other photographs, my more normal yoga photographs. When she came to the studio, she's like, wow, you're amazing. And I lapped it up. And 10 years later, I wanted her to photograph the bits that were not seen as amazing. So we got a shot of that. But in the meantime, I also thought, I want to show what we hide in our clothes and what's the reality. And Petra, who I've mentioned before, the NT on my course, had given me the challenge when we talked about, the body obsession, the body cult of yoga. She said, what if you ask your students to do their class without once fixing their leggings? Which is huge. Like, people pull their leggings up over the little floppity bits at the bottom of their abdomen all the time. So I wanted to show what my yoga clothes hid by taking my clothes off. So I did the postures with the clothes on and with them off. Because I just want to show people that whatever they think about the influencers or the wellness professionals that they're going to is not necessarily true. I love these people who just appear as they are. Having said that, I think it's really fine if you don't want to appear on social media or in your advertising with no makeup on, or with your floppity bits and your saggy bits. But you don't pretend that what you do separates you from the people whose bodies are changing. That you have to say that yes, I'm a yoga teacher and I, this is how I like to appear in the world, but I'm not fixing everything. I'm not defying the years. I'm not defying time. I'm not defying the life cycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it was less easy for me to post some of those photographs than I thought. I started with the face and the wrinkles in the face and the liver spots and the skin changes. That's age and sun exposure. But the wrinkles and all of that. And I didn't know if I was ever going to post the one with the folds at the bottom of my abdomen, and then the one where I'm in plank pose, when your belly hangs down and it's all this like moonscape, wrinkly, mad thing. And I find that beautiful and it's gorgeous to touch. It's like this really soft. So I didn't know if I was going to be able to do that. But after the Jennifer Aniston post about, her appearing half naked at 53, I thought, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Do you know, that was actually one of the clinches of me deciding that I was going to stay up all night, because I was like, I am all for, number one, challenging the things that we think are reality, which aren't, but also people showing up and doing things that shouldn't require courage, because it should feel comfortable for us to show our whole selves, but in reality do take courage. And that's something that has been a really conscious decision for me, stepping back into my business this time, having been away for 7 years. The first time, like I was looking for a photo today. This is hilarious. I'll have to send it to you. Looking for a photo today, and I came across the header pictures for my like my last website before I closed my business down 7 years ago. And it was, oh my God, it's like cringeworthy when I think about it, but it's just the evolution of how comfortable you are. But, there's these photos, and I mean, we're on a podcast, so no one else is going to be able to see this, but they're very like, the big posy, big grin. Like, I've always been a big grinner, but they're so contrived. It all about what I thought I needed to be like to be professional in the type of work that I was doing. And now I'm like, am I not just calling like myself to account for actually just being myself? Because it's exhausting, right? Being anything but yourself is exhausting. So I'm like, you to keep this shit up. So when I go back into business, I'm not putting makeup on because I can't be asked. Like, I literally can't be asked. And if you see me with makeup on, that's great. That's a bonus day, but you're not going to get it every day. And to me, that's like, I want to be swimming in an ocean, particularly on social media, where women are being honest about who they are and how they look, and how age is, just part of the human experience, and that we arrive fully formed at death, exactly as you were saying, like we're going through transition all the time. Because one of the big things for me that is very real from a social media perspective is that, because that I've had a history of binge eating disorder. So to me, the triggering of social media can very much be about, swimming in an ocean of perfectly filtered, perfectly proportioned, beautiful people, when you don't feel like that yourself. It's like, stop swimming in the same fucking ocean then, Kylie. Like, you need to, take care of your environment. And so, my feed is all about, curvy people of all races, backgrounds, etc. People just being who they are unapologetically. I guess that's the word that keeps coming to my mind.
Yeah, I think we have to be aware, though, that not everybody feels safe to do that. And this is not because they're less than me. Like, if you don't feel like being naked on social media with your wrinkly bits, it's not because you're less than me.
No.
It's, for a start, I've always been comfortable in my body. I used to be a life model for an art school when I was in my teens. And we don't feel safe because the world doesn't let us feel safe. So of course, not everybody needs to or can do this. But the world is in flux at the moment. I think the menopausal and aging world are in flux, where we're starting to make menopausal and aging women feel safer.
Yes.
So I think it will improve, and I hope it continues to improve. And it's also fine for some people to appear like these, goddesses that we can just jaw drop at their beauty or whatever. Like, I was in the dentist with my daughter the other day, the orthodontist, for braces and stuff. Yeah. And he had taken an x-ray of her head, and he was showing me her profile on x-ray, and he was pointing out to me how perfect it was, because her chin was perfectly in line with the tip of her nose, was perfectly in line with something else. And I was looking at her, and I absolutely was like, yes, she is absolutely perfect. So there is a joy in that too, and as he showed a photograph of her face, he was showing me how symmetrical it was. And she's a stunner. And she also has autism, so she's perfect in the bony structure is quote unquote perfect, but she's neuroatypical. So it's like, absolutely, we can enjoy that as well. We can enjoy that sort of classic perfection of what did you say, proportion and all of that.
I think...
but if we all feel we have to achieve it or pretend we have it, if we don't, that's where we don't feel safe and we can't relax, and our nervous systems are shot. Exactly. The whole world, the nervous system of the whole world, the neurosystemics of the world is shot.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
we're working on that person by person.
I think more so I feel like what I've got an allergy to at the moment is the filtering and the fakeness of the social media posting. So I'm exactly the same. When I see someone who's classically beautiful, I'm just like, this is something to behold. Like, there is like a gorgeous, I don't know, I get quite captivated to the point where sometimes my kids are like, Mom, stop staring. But I'm like, for me, it's more so that the fakeness of the image altering, or the particular postures and whatnot, for people to appear to be a way that they're not naturally. It's like, can we just be real? Like, the fakeness, I can't.
Very good point. So, like, looking at George Clooney is as delightful as looking at a sunset, and we're allowed to look at a sunset and go, wow. So we could look at George Clooney and go, wow, because he is, he's aesthetically very pleasing.
Yes.
But yes, the whole model stance of when one foot's in front of the other, so their hips look, is that to make their hips look less wide, or I don't know what that's for.
I've never.
But yeah, there's just you see it, and you see it in teens. They're all same pose and in the teenage photographs, and one foot in front of the other.
And lips. I'm like, stop sticking your boobs out.
I
please.
know, it's so sad. It makes me so sad. Yeah, me too. In the younger, that's the thing. This is a totally non-perimenopause thing now, but apparently older teens and young women are being sold Botox and fillers to. And they're using them, and they're being told this will prevent you getting wrinkles. So it's no longer that they're giving it to people whose faces are starting to lose collagen and to plump up and get more youthful, in inverted commas, but they're also now targeting younger people to say this will prevent wrinkles. So that's all happening, and all the teens look exactly the same.
And
it's very sad.
Also, please do your research, because Botox does not prevent wrinkles. Anyway,
well, I don't know if it's Botox or collagen or what, because it might be the collagen one, so don't quote me on that.
Yeah, true. That actually leads me to my final curiosity. So, how does your knowledge and depth of now experience, not only as a student, but also teaching other people how to be aware of and shifting perspective around perimenopause, how do you reckon that is going to be flowing through to have you got 2 daughters? Yeah, so 2 daughters, versus the way that the environment that we were swimming in when we were that age. Do you reckon it's changing anything for them?
Gosh, it's tricky. So there's a few things here. One is I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Two is do we, you were talking, I think, before we were recording about, or maybe it was when we were recording about, you didn't know anything about perimenopause until the first symptoms came, sort of denial. And the narrative over the 7 or 8 years that I've been doing this work has been, we need to get women informed before perimenopause strikes. And I'm very much into that idea that women don't suddenly have this thing that they don't know what it is. But I also kind of see the counter to that, which is, do we need to spend our adulthood aware of perimenopause, or is it actually natural that we should just stay in the phase we're at? So when we're in adulthood without perimenopause, that's just what we are. And then we're in perimenopause, and that's what we are. That's what we're navigating. So can we find that balance in terms of, we know that education about perimenopause is coming into schools now,
yes,
but can we keep it light? Can we keep it small while not ignoring it as we have in the past? So it was ignored in our education and my generation and yours. But I think we have to be careful of bombarding, because then do we create a situation where people in their 20s and 30s are just dreading the rest of their lives,
and
because
they're just waiting.
Yeah, waiting for it to happen. Yeah, even if the education upholds the positives and doesn't make it too scary, how will that could it negatively influence their presence in the moment of their 20s and 30s, say?
That's a very good point.
So that's one thing. I don't know yet what the ideal amount of education is. There will be more education for them. That will be in school curricula. It's only, I know it's only in the UK school curriculum now, secondary curriculum, but usually Ireland follows suit with the UK, and I would suspect that it will come onto curriculums in the Western world before too long. So they will have learnt about it, which is, I mean, it's absolutely obvious that you should.
Yes.
It's part of human biology. It's insane to not learn about it. But I hope it's gently done in a way. And then I don't know, Kylie, I'm kind of both hopeful and also cynical. I am aware that the commercial world and the pharmaceutical world has the power to grab this and make it possibly even more pressured and more uncomfortable for my daughters when they reach it.
Totally agree.
That it'll be all about stopping it happening and doing whatever they can to stop it happening, which is not possible. I hope, that's my cynical fear, because I know what the world is like, driven by, the economy has to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, not sustain and sustain. So that the economy will hijack it. Economic growth model will hijack it, and that's what they'll be navigating. But my hope is that it will be more normalized, that the people who are talking about perimenopause and postmenopause and aging liberation and anti-ageism, that we will triumph, or at least not triumph, but that we will help to normalize the life process. And that they will be able to be open about their experiences, talk to each other. That's what I think will happen, is that there will be more ability to be open, even if it is just with their GP, if that's the way they go and they don't feel, I don't know whether women will talk to each other well about it. I hope they do. I think they do more and more, so that will probably continue. But that they will be more likely to seek help if they need it. They will be less sideswiped by it, because they will have knowledge, because knowledge tends to dissipate fear to some degree. Because if we over knowledge ourselves about perimenopause, we may be in a lot of fear. So I hope that the knowledge is balanced to the point where they know when and what to do. But I hope also that the ridiculous polarization and the ridiculous evangelism about interventions will come back to the middle realistic ground. I think that the scandal in the UK at the moment will help that happen. I was thinking it would take a very long time for the HRT is bad, swinging to HRT is good. I was thinking it was going to take a very long time for that pendulum to get back to the middle. But I think possibly unwittingly, though again, there's a lot of money behind this, that scandal will help women draw that pendulum back to the middle, yes, where there are no hard and fast answers. But we'll see. I was sort of expecting maybe in 7 years we'd get that kind of information. Yeah. So that's happened quite quickly. Yeah, and then there's also the autism piece, which is great that there's people doing research into the autistic experience of menopause. So I hope that my daughter will have more robust knowledge and more robust potentials for help and support in society and community. But like any health challenge, perimenopause can make health challenges or diversity or social struggles more difficult. So I do fear for her, I have to say. Yeah, so I don't know is the main answer. Yeah. I have hopes, but I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting. I've definitely seen a lot of backlash around the menopause influences. So same sort of issues that there is around, I don't know, I did integrative health coaching years and years ago, and since then it feels like every single person and their dog went through the same the same place as me and got their holistic health certificate. And as much as I think that that's a good thing in a lot of ways, it also has created a lot of influencers who have, not necessarily the depth and breadth of knowledge and education behind them that you would ideally be getting your advice from. Put it that way. So, to me, they're the health influencers. And I have been noticing that there is beginning to pop up these menopause influencers where it's, they've got one particular thing that they're kind of banding on about, and that's their thing. And I also saw something hideously bad the other day, in my opinion, where there's more of like a multi-level marketing structure thing that's a menopause treatment. And I was like, oh my God, that's the last thing that we need. Man. Is that people, because then, you're creating more of that push of people wanting or needing whatever to create income from that business opportunity that are, becoming influencers. You're like, oh, stop.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There are things that I could say that I have heard from people who are very, incredibly informed, incredibly qualified, who, can't say the things they want to say because of the risk of libel, but that women are being scammed at the moment. Menopausal women are being scammed at the moment, not just from wellness professionals, but from medical perspective as well. It's pretty grim, and that's why I'm afraid of it being so monetized that my girls won't have a better future. But I really hope that the middle ground will win out.
Yeah.
But we're a funny old species.
We are a funny old species, and the pendulum does like to swing from extreme to extreme.
It really does. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I'm deeply grateful for the opening the field of possibilities for me personally, but also being a voice of, I feel like, pioneering the change in such a big industry as the yoga industry, as we've talked about in the beginning of the interview, and challenging the way that we see lots of different things. To me, that perspective shifting, because we know that, if our brains expect a negative experience, that's what we can, filter for and create, whereas you're actually inviting a completely different way of looking at things, which I'm deeply grateful for personally, but also very deeply grateful on behalf of the people that I will then be able to help to see perspective shifting. For the people that are listening, who are people that are, and my apologies in advance if I get this incorrect, but so there's the course that I went through as the yoga for stages of menopause, but you also offer it's like a menopause. I would call it CPD in Australia, but I don't think that's what you call it. But it's like
no, it is actually.
It is CPD. Okay, can you talk about that, because I'd love to put that in the show notes. But just for anyone listening, if they do fit that bill, to know about that offering from you as well.
Yeah, so the course you did is a yoga teacher training certificate in teaching yoga for the stage of menopause, a 40-hour training, and it's live, but I now have a self-paced version. So poor old Kylie, who stayed up till 2 a.m. I think it's better to join live and even have bits recorded, because you get a relationship with the other teachers, and you can interact with me live and have those juicy moments where you're like, oh yeah, and this and this. But that self-paced version is also available now. But the CPD is a shorter one. It's just 9 hours, and it's self-paced as well, and that is for Pilates instructors, personal trainers, health coaches, functional, whatever it was you said you were, functional health coach, so people who work in wellness, but also I'm developing, this will only be live, a CPD for psychotherapists as well, which has been certified by the Irish Association of Counsellors and Psychotherapists. So the self-paced CPD for personal trainers and Pilates teachers, the live version, which I only do with a company called Body Hack, is certified by a company called Body Hack, which is a worldwide certification body, but this is certified by Body Hack UAE, because I do that live in Dubai. But that is also available as the same content that is certified by Body Hack is available on my website. I also work with people one-to-one, so I have someone starting my coaching program now, which is just a 3 months connection with me, and then I do online classes on Tuesday evenings as well in Ireland, which would be about 9:30 Australian time. Well, wherever you are, you have a few time zones, I know, but so yeah. Oh no, it wouldn't be 9. No, it's 7:30 my time. So that would be stupid o'clock for you.
7:30 p.m. I can't even remember.
Oh yeah, no,
the
that
training
would be
started
stupid.
at 10 and it was 8 my time.
8 p.m.
So we must be.
Oh my god.
What is that? 10. I don't know. I can't do time zones.
Yeah.
Especially
not right now. Anyway, I think it would be stupid o'clock.
It might be stupid o'clock. Thank you so much. We also, I have not actually said your business name. So you're Yinstinct Yoga. So we will put all the links that we've mentioned in the show notes. Highly recommend to go and look at that Naked Truth highlight and all of your content. Like I love when you post. I'm like, ooh, what you got to say now? But yeah, if you're not only if you're in this transition period, just if you want to inform yourself and stay in the field of possibilities that perimenopause can be an experience that you can adjust to, and there's lots of positives that come out of it, and definitely that portal of figuring out what you won't tolerate anymore. It's very clear for me at the moment. So thank you so much, and yes, may we meet again in person somewhere in the world. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll come to Australia, please.
Oh, well, I've never been to Ireland. I've never seen where my dad's
from. Damn it.
I know.
We'll have to do both.
Oh, we could. Absolutely. Come and do a retreat here and then. Oh, dear. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I was always so excited. When you signed up for my course, the thing that made me so excited to see you was the title of your podcast. So I just need to say it. Wild and finally fucking free.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going to underscore that. So Wild and Free is the name of my motorbike, my leather jacket that I wear on a motorbike. So that's part of, but also my two top, core desired feelings: freedom and being untamed, wild. But my husband and I have just are going to embark in about 2 months on a wild and finally fucking free joyride on the bike, which will be 5,000 kilometres down the middle of Australia.
Amazing.
Very sore bum. There'll be lots of yoga to loosen up at the end. Anyway, so yes, stay tuned, everyone. Thanks so much, Niamh. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into another episode, and I trust you're walking away with inspiration, aha, maybe some chiropractic adjustments of the soul where you've realized perhaps some ways that you're getting in your own way, or something that needs to be healed, or something that's calling to you that your heart really, really wants to birth or create or step into in this second cycle of life. And if that's you, I am throwing my arms wide open and inviting you to check out all of the ways that we could potentially partner together at kyliepatchett.com.au. That's my website for the podcast, and also one-on-one and group programs in midlife mentorship, yoga and breath work in specifically designed menopause classes online, and also, super excitingly, a list of retreats around Australia that I have been blessed to partner with some pretty darn spectacular humans who also help midlife mavens through this transition point. So if you are looking for some support, some community, some tools, just a safe place to actually reconnect to who you are, what you want, and come home to your own power and magnificence, I would love to welcome you into any one of those containers. So head on over to kyliepatchett.com.au, and I will be back in your ears very, very soon.